I had my doubts about watching Bocchi the Rock because all signs pointed to it turning out exactly like K-On!, which for the record is a bad thing. Of course, there are these similar premises. They're both lighthearted comedies about a high school girl joining a band, but what had me even more worried is that, like K-On!, Bocchi the Rock, you just didn't hear anyone having anything bad to say about it. And that's always suspicious because even the best shows have their flaws and normally do get their fair share of criticism. Take for example my favorite anime from last year, Summertime Render. Reviewers were tripping all over themselves to say, it's good, but... And I appreciate that. Knowing a show's strengths and flaws helps me decide better whether I want to watch it. If someone says, Summertime Render is good, but it gets really shonen towards the end, or Summertime Render is good, but it has a lot of fan service, I think, okay, I could see that being a problem for some people, but not for me. I'll give it a shot. When I don't see any criticism, that's the red flag. Especially for a show like Bocchi the Rock, you gotta assume it's just getting the slice of life treatment, where all criticism is inherently invalid and being boring is actually a virtue, because that's just an accurate depiction of real life, right? As a matter of both principle and experience, I tend to avoid those kinds of shows, but when Bocchi the Rock's getting an 8.95 rating on my anime list, where it's also ranked 14th out of all anime ever made, my morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I ended up watching it against my better judgments. The good news is that, unlike K-On!, Bocchi the Rock is actually watchable. It's single plus good according to my rating system, which means it's not a strong recommendation, but it's sufficiently enjoyable nonetheless. And all it took to be much, much better than K-On! Were two little things. First of all, it has focus, and second of all, it has a reasonably good sense of humor. In Bocchi the Rock, being in a band is actually a really important part of the show, whereas in K-On!, it's really not. In K-On!, the band is just a backdrop for the girls to hang out together. They could have just as easily been a chess club that didn't play chess, or a literature club that didn't read. In Bocchi the Rock, everything revolves around Bocchi being in a band, whether it's selling tickets, designing shirts, or actually playing music. That means the show doesn't need to be carried by comedy or by other character interactions more broadly. Without the focus of the band, you just have girls hanging out. And without a good sense of humor, you just have girls hanging out and telling each other shitty jokes. That was K-On!, but thankfully, that's not Bocchi the Rock. Bocchi the Rock's sense of humor won't have you rolling on the floor, but it's acceptably good, whereas K-On!'s was offensively bad. To illustrate the difference, look no further than the band names. Bocchi the Rock has the Kessoku Band, which is a clever wordplay in Japanese. K-On! Has After School Tea Time, which is just something they do. It reminds me of Radioactive Man's catchphrase, Up and Atom, versus Radiation Dude's catchphrase, Up and Let's Go. My favorite scene in Bocchi the Rock was the concert from episode 8. Bocchi has difficulty communicating, much like Komi from Komi Can't Communicate. The show often contrasts Bocchi's communication issues with the complete strangers around her always being extremely friendly, cheerful, and supportive to suggest that her social anxiety is completely unwarranted. But this concert scene showed us that even in the feel-good Bocchi the Rock, the music industry can be harsh, and that Bocchi's social anxiety isn't entirely baseless. Now on to my criticisms of the show. Aside from Bocchi herself, none of the characters are memorable. There's the stock positive girl, the stock leader girl, the stock deadpan girl, the stock drunk girl, the stock strict girl who's actually nice, the stock family, the stock dog, etc. Obviously they can develop into more unique characters with another season, but the supporting cast so far is nothing special. The sense of humor is good but not great. In addition to many jokes not landing in the first place, which to be clear is completely normal in all but the absolute best comedies, Bocchi the Rock reuses some jokes way too much, extends other jokes way too long, and it has some artsy jokes that I know some people go gaga over, but I find them annoying. I don't want to see anything non-animated in anime. A few more notes. The show uses a lot of real-life locations, something I always appreciate. For example, much of the show takes place in Shimokitazawa, the hipster neighborhood that has turned mainstream and is now actually kind of expensive. The anime changes up its ending themes a few times, that's always a plus, and the Japanese on this show is mostly easy to understand aside from a few technical musical terms. Anyway, like I said, Bocchi the Rock is single plus good. You're not going to catch me bashing it like K-On! Or putting it on a pedestal like Detroit Metal City. I would just be content for Bocchi the Rock to be seen as the acceptable standard for the genre.